Good morning. It is an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw. I'm going to stop talking and pass it to whoever starts talking next.
I'm going to start talking now. We were just talking about cats and kittens. And I've always thought of cats as being very agile. You know, they always land on their feet. And I forget that there's a process to that. Like, kittens are super clumsy. It's like, oh yeah, they went through that too. It's not like inherent to cats are just always land on their feet. They stumbled a lot. They fell a lot. They collapsed all the time, fell down the stairs. So it's like, I don't know, maybe they just did more of that and then they found the balance. But, yeah.
Gained strength, gained, some context, learned that some things are harder than their head.
Find out quick.
Right.
Oh man, I banged my head against a corner of a cabinet yesterday, and I get stars from time to time.
Oh,
I had a lot. I had like 5 or 6 concussions growing up in sports, and still get that sense. But it's a good reminder. It's like, oh yeah, none of this is guaranteed. Like, you're alive right now. That's cool. You exist right now.
Pay attention.
Pay attention, and like, stop assuming so many things.
Don't be in such a rush.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did that a couple months ago. I hit the top of my head on the corner of a door that I had left open, a cabinet door. Of course, I left it open. I went to reach down, wasn't thinking, stood up right into the corner, right at the top of the head. Didn't realize it for a few days, but it actually broke skin. Like, I had a good corner mark in the top of my skull for a few days, and just that stuff, that shit hurts. And then you sit there making that face, you're like, where it's gonna, I know you can't see the face, listener.
You know the face.
You know the face. You know exactly what your face is when that happens, and it just hurts. It's very much like just jabbing your toe into the corner of a table or something. But slow down, pay attention. What's the rush? It's all for naught if all of a sudden you're standing there for 5 minutes making that face.
Mm-hmm. I know, but I think we rush to there, and there is just some place that's better than here, and that's what we've thought of, and we rush to the next moment because this moment, for some reason or another, is just not enough. And it seems to boil down to that more often than not.
Yeah, I was thinking this morning about thinking and how it's never actually done me any good, like the good that I thought it would do. But it's a fantastic. The only thing it does is distract me from right now, from the experience I'm having, and that assumption, there's this underlying assumption that there's somewhere else better than the place that you're in.
Yeah.
As you're focused on those thoughts, you said the other day with there and here, the T before here represents the thoughts about there better than here.
Yeah, you prioritize the thought over here, and so that's why you put the T in front of here and create the word there.
And so we can we can be there in a sense. I'm still here, but there's a side of me that's there. Yeah. And it's fascinating how it's this doesn't actually do anything. It just distracts. It just is like a soothing sort of veil to fog up what's happening, but you're still where you're at. You're still involved in the situation. And especially if you are afraid and you try to control things, you got to think to try and control things. You got to think to try and control which outcome is best instead of, reverting. It's that Chinese finger puzzle we've brought up a few times where it's thinking is the pull away, and it doesn't actually get you anywhere. I'm gonna have to turn that off. But the relaxation. Enough of you. But you're relaxing. You're going in a different direction, and so it feels drastically different. It's unfamiliar to the tension, the drive towards control thinking. It's going into that. And so that it's a full kind of shift in focus and priority, and has a lot to do with fear and, assumptions on top of it. There is a root to the thinking and the reasons that we do it.
Yes. Hello, everyone. We've got quite a few people already watching. Good morning. It is Sunday. Speaking of here rather than there, I think it's really important to remember, like, so we've been on the podcast now for 6 seasons, coming up on 7 very soon.
Woo!
Very, very soon. And
yes.
over that podcast, or over those 6 seasons, I've been saying that, there is no enlightenment. There's nowhere to get. And a lot of times, because I've spent so long, I think, and I've had so many experiences where I've seen that in real time, and I've learned to apply that, or I've seen the consequence of not applying that, or any of that kind of thing. I seem very calm to people. I think that they look at me in a way where they're just like, yeah, nothing phases Ray. And I've had this said to me from people in my life, like, nothing gets to you though. And so there almost becomes this assumption that I'm not human, like that I'm just like, all of a sudden that Ray's enlightened. Ray is beyond all of that. Ray has gotten, quote unquote,
Messiah level reached.
there, but I've gotten there. The there that I've been keep saying to let go of is where I've gotten to.
That's where you live.
Right? Like,
that's how you know, don't come here. Don't visit this town that I live in.
And you have the key to that. Right?
There's a population of 1. It's Ray.
But it's that. It's that. It's not that I've gotten anywhere. The calm or the lightness that I tend to have from moment to moment to moment has nothing to do with the fact that I don't feel these things, and everything to do with the fact that I look at these things as informative. I look at them as part of the experience. I don't resist them. I don't think that I shouldn't feel them, but that doesn't mean that I don't. And I think that's really important, because I know it's happened numerous times where somebody in my life has done something that they would not do to someone else under the assumption, oh, well, Ray won't take that personally. Ray's not going to feel hurt by that. Ray's not going to, it won't. Ray's beyond all that. Ray's beyond all that. He's above it. Again, he's gotten there. And what's sad about that is that it's kind of perpetuating the journey that they feel that they're on. But it also makes it impossible for them to see me or hear me or in any way be in my life. Right? And this is very much why I'm not looking for friends. I don't want friends in my life. I'm not looking for somebody who is in that relationship where it's like give and take.
Yeah.
It's, I do stuff for you, you do stuff for me.
Tit for tat.
Right? But if I feel that you don't need it, well, then, I just don't pay attention to it. Whatsoever. But I still want, the stuff for me. So I'm still going to look at you in the way that I want to look at you. Absolutely. And so I think it comes down to that recognition that you're not getting away from a place where you feel all that stuff. But all of a sudden you're not running from it. And so it doesn't have the same impact, but it still has impact. Like, give you an example. If somebody is in my life and behind my back, they're talking about me, blaming me for things, doing all that, and they don't come and talk to me about that, I don't make the assumption that that's what they're doing. Otherwise, why would I hang out with this person?
Right.
But when I hear about it after the fact, what I used to do is go, oh, like, that's unfair. Like, why would they do that? I'm terribly betrayed. And, I was doing all this, and I don't do that now. But what I do is recognize that I had an image of that person. I had an idea of that person that doesn't meet the reality, that doesn't match the reality. And it's not necessarily that I need to make a decision based on the hurt, but I should make a decision based on the recognition that I wasn't having a relationship with the reality. Yeah. And to take in the new information and go, oh shit, that's the reality. That's closer to the reality there. Once I've disregarded the idea of this person I wanted to have, this is the person they actually are. And then I make a decision accordingly. But it's not personal, and I understand that. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It's just that the hurt means something else. It doesn't mean they've done something wrong so much as I thought of them in a way that they aren't. And that's the problem, I think, with trying to see the best in people, is that you will repeatedly feel hurt as a result. And there's no reason for that except to teach you to stop trying to see anything and just see what's there, see what you're shown. Stop banking on them being an idea, because that just comes down to attachment. And that's the other lesson behind that. Why does it hurt? Because I had an idea of this person that I was attached to. I enjoyed having them in my life. I enjoyed envisioning them being a part of my life. But that's that certainty going forward, and that's where the hurt comes from again. And so there's all these lessons about what I've done in terms of investing in a concept, investing in false certainty. And that's the pain. It's not what they've done. Mm-hmm. See, it's not what they've done. It's not them at all.
It's a different kind of disappointment.
Absolutely. And so you make choices accordingly. But it's not that you ever get to a point where you don't feel it.
No.
And I don't think you should, because I think that's a great lesson, because you can't help but build an idea over time. Like the more time I spend with you two fuckers, the more fond of you I get, right? The danger is in thinking that you are what I think you are. The danger is in building you up as a quote unquote friend, rather than appreciate you both as authentic people. And that's why I say, I don't want friends. I know that my reality will reflect my own authenticity. And so anybody who is not authentic in my life quickly leaves. And it's usually because they find, I will just tell them what it is that they've done. I will just say, hey, sorry, like I had an idea of you. That's not it. This isn't what I thought it was. Let's move on.
Oh yeah, we've had, not like official start conversations like that, where it's like, we're still here chatting, but like, we've had conversations like that. But it's interesting, the whole thing. Krishnamurti says a lot, like, I don't mind what happens. My secret to everything. I don't mind what happens. But I think some people along those lines of like assuming that someone's just like love and light one side of the spectrum. It's like, I don't mind what happens. And the assumption that there won't be a response in some way, because like no response is a response too.
Yep.
Like not standing up for yourself is also, it's not like no action is this baseline. It's like no action is one side of a response.
Exactly.
Action is another response. And so just because someone doesn't mind what happens doesn't mean that they're not going to respond accordingly, especially when they can see where that's coming from, like where the focus, where, the whatever they're expressing is coming from. Like a lot of it people won't want to just take responsibility for themselves and their own life and things that they're doing and actions that they're taking. So like if it isn't on them, if you're not being wholeheartedly responsible for your life, for how you're feeling, for your response to reality, like if it's not totally on you, there's some of it's going to be on other people. There's going to be some, like woe is me victim sort of thing. And then there's going to be someone who's on the other side of that if someone's not taking responsibility. And so that's, vital. And what's left isn't expectation for people or this thought that like someone could do anything for you, but it's also recognizing like you don't have to interact with everyone. Like it isn't necessary to like be nice to everyone all the time. Like that's an option, but that's also like one end of the spectrum that a lot of time will stem from deeper insecurities or fear.
That's it. It's the not wanting to accept your reaction to things, like your feelings about things. It's really like, no, I shouldn't be feeling this, because an enlightened person wouldn't feel that. Like that's a terrible place to be. It's that idea of there, right? You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to respond. If somebody has taken advantage of you, or somebody is inauthentic with you, or somebody is hurting you, or any of those things, you have every right in the world to go, that's enough of that shit, and just walk the fuck away. Yeah. You really do. And it doesn't have to be personal. You don't have to be going, you're a fucking dick. You don't need to do that. You can just go, yeah, I don't need that. I don't need that in my life. I just don't. You're on your path, you do your thing, and your reality is going to match your authenticity in the same way, but it doesn't have to be personal. You can feel what you feel, make a decision according to the information, and move on with your life. But the problem with that is attachment. Attachment makes that process fucking hard, because then you're biased. And then all of a sudden you start thinking about, what you're doing in a relationship because you don't want to disappoint others, instead of what you're doing in a relationship for your own fucking reasons.
Yeah.
Like, what's happening in your life? Not what are other people thinking about it, but what's happening in your life. Because what's amazing is that half the time other people aren't thinking about it. You know, and that's the thing is, and if you were to talk to them and go, you know, well, I don't want to disappoint you. I want to live up to your expectations. They go, we don't have any. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, so it's always that. It's that relationship to an idea rather than a relationship to yourself. And I don't want that. See, I don't want anybody to have a relationship to an idea about me, because that idea is always going to flip-flop. And we've seen that previously in the community from numerous different people from numerous different careers, some of which should know better, right? Where they will
trained to know better.
Flip back and forth between, Ray's, you know, the fucking, you know, a guru, to Ray's a cult leader and a manipulator. And the reason that they do that is because they're really oscillating between two different ideas of me, which are based on two different ideas of themselves. None of these people know me. That's the funniest part about all of this. They're like, well, I've listened to the podcast. You've listened to an hour and a half of me talking about something specific. You are not in my life. That's the point. You're not here. So how can you know me in the way that you think that you do? Ray is absolutely this. Ray is absolutely that. You don't know that. And even if you've come to an event, all you know is event Ray, which, as much as I try to be as authentic as I can, there's still a role there. You know, because I'm going to tell you, when somebody walks up to me at an event and they're like, hey, I can't find any cups. Event Ray is going to go, shit, let's fucking find you some cups. Ray would go, you got two fucking legs and eyeballs.
Yeah, figure it out.
Go look for a fucking cup. You know, and that's the point, is that there's a very big difference between them. And people don't get that. And people treat me according to the person that they see or want to see in Dualistic Unity. And they forget, I'm not that person. And I've said it for 6 fucking seasons. I'm not that person. But as long as you think there's a place that you want to get to as a person, you'll look at me or Andrew or Amanda or any fucking guru as someone who's gotten there. And you will discount their humanity. And as such, you won't treat them as human, which invalidates the whole fucking point of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Right? Because you're discounting all the work. Like someone will look at one of our reactions and will put that reaction on a pedestal and be like, I want to get there. Motherfucker, it took work. You know, so when I see you not blowing your fucking top over every small, medium, or large thing, I'm also seeing the culmination of a lot of acceptance, a lot of, you know, acknowledging the assumptions, you know, and the assumption that we're most attached to is that it is personal. You want it to be personal. You want people to think about you because you think about the idea of you nonstop, that everyone must do the same. No one could truly be here. We're all thinking about there. And we just use other people and circumstances as just another distraction. But it takes a lot of attention and it takes a lot of reps to be in a place where you're not constantly in super high peaks and super high or super lows. You know, it's taken a lot of attention, and that is available to everybody. But then once you start to exhibit less of these like flawed human traits, it's that you lose your humanity, because we think that to be human is to be over the top, overwhelmed, underwhelmed. To be human is to be in constant extremes, and that's not the case.
No, and it's fun. Like, I was imagining a scenario where if you were thinking that people were focused on your life, like worrying about judgment, concerned about things, like imagining being afraid of a group of people or whatever, how you're living your life, and then going to those people and like talking to them and pointing out times where you thought you were being judged, and then hearing their response and then being like, what are you talking about? Like, you really think, like, you don't think I have a full life? Like, you don't think I have a lot going on in my life right now? Like, how little do you think I do throughout a day? How important do you think you are? Like, how important do you really think you are if you think that people are spending much degree of time at all focused on you and your life and thinking about how you're living? Like, it really, really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And, you know, the versions of people we create, like, they're personal. They're personal versions. Like, someone's view of you, someone's view of Amanda, someone's view of me, someone's view of anyone is a very personal experience. Like, it's your version. It's not them. It's never going to be them. And so being mindful of those assumptions that you're making, or how you're looking at someone, or what you're assuming that they're doing when you're not face to face interacting with them, is something to be, very, very careful of, because there is no guarantee of like the depth of a person, or what they're feeling, or what they're thinking, or what they're dealing with or going through. And I've had a couple times where I've been talking to someone kind of thinking that they were thinking a certain way, or have a conversation with someone assuming that they're going to respond in one way, and then they respond in a completely different way,
Bubble
or
burst.
bring up something else, or like, and then immediately my brain's like, oh, that wasn't a certainty. Of course it wasn't a certainty. Of course it wasn't a guarantee. Of course there's no way to like pinpoint what's being expressed, what's being shown, what's being, you know, done via our mind, our thoughts, like that craving to know how people see us, what we're bringing across. Like, it can build a lot of tension within us. Like, there is absolutely a physical response to your experience right now, but it's all based on this idea that we can find some certainty by thinking about stuff, by focusing on a way to have control, to get the thing, like, to
absolutely fair. But we do it. We tend to think, the more we think about ourselves, the more everything that we take in from the world around us goes through that lens. It's a bitch. It really does suck. Like, the more you think that you are terrible at talking and everybody's judging you, the more that you will freeze up in the middle of saying something and then assume everybody who's looking at you, just wondering what's going to come next, is assuming you're a fuck up and a failure. Like, they're just waiting for it. It's like, that, there it is. I knew he'd suck. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that. The brain just creates this fucking story according to what you want to believe. Right? According to what you want to believe. Like, the idea that I'm either a guru or a manipulator really revolves around, revolves around this idea of yourself. It really does. You know, like, if you want to believe that you're going somewhere and somebody knows how to get there, and you want to believe in someone and that's them, you're going to fucking look at me in some other way. If all of a sudden it dawns on you, shit, that's not the case, then all of a sudden you're going to go, he's a manipulator.
Right.
And you'll never once think to yourself, well, maybe I'm not fucking listening to him. Maybe I haven't actually been catching on to a single fucking thing that's been said. Maybe it's because I'm still looking at him as something. You know, and there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing any of us can do about that. There's nothing you can do about that, listener, as people see you as either their savior or their fucking demon. There's nothing that you can do about that. Just try to be reasonable. Have the reasonability to go, you know, I'm not. Because, again, it really makes sense to just tell people, like, I'm just a fucking human being. But don't expect them to hear you. And I think that's the biggest thing. You know, don't expect them to hear you, because they're going to hear what they're prepared to hear. And if they're looking for a savior, they're gonna find it in someone. And if they're looking for someone to blame, they're gonna find it in someone. And it has nothing to do with you. You know, and just recognize that. Just take that in. You know, again, there's no control about it, because trust me, no amount of I'm not this, don't look at me that way is going to help.
Yeah.
Take it from me. We're 500 episodes in. I'm still dealing with this shit.
Right, because people can only really hear their perception. You only really hear the perception that you're in the middle of.
The seeking you shall find. Like, that's hitting different today. It's not this like seek, you know, the truth and you'll find the truth, but like assume something in yourself and reality will show you that. Like, reality will show you what your assumptions are, or do its best to confirm it. Like, it can only be aware, it can only pick up on certain things. So if you have an assumption right now, if you're afraid right now, you're like seeking fear, your mind is going to come up with things to be afraid of. You know, if you're not seeking anything, what's left is what's here and your imagination, your mind. Like it's the lack of assuming something about what's going on, assuming so many things about yourself. That story you tell yourself, it's personal, it's very unique. Seek and you shall find. You want that story to be true, you'll make it true. Like you'll just do it. You're like, oh, I'm so anxious. I always stumble on my words. I always forget what I'm saying. It's like boom, boom, boom. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to stumble on your words. You're going to keep forgetting what you're saying because you want to be sure. You'd rather be sure about what's going on than be aware and uncertain and a little bit more relaxed. But if you want to know, if you want to be certain of anything, it's a lot easier to assume that you're terrible at everything because it doesn't take any practice to be bad at stuff. You're kind of starting there at ground zero. And again, bad, subjective, all that stuff. But like, it's that assumption in the immediacy, like, and you want to be sure. It's like, oh yeah, I can do all that stuff. Whereas you want to be sure you're articulate, then it's like, you don't get that. Cause then it's like, you try and control your way there, and you can kind of do that too, just from getting practice, but it's not going to be relaxed. It's still that seeking, it's still that desire to be good at something, to be better at something. But again, seek and you shall find. Fucking A.
Well, seek implies lack, right? Because if I'm seeking something, I'm implying that I don't have that something, which is why I'm looking for the something that I clearly do not have, damn it.
Possibly. How do you know that? Well, I'm assuming that I don't.
It's my latest assumption, hot off the presses. You know, but when you were talking, it reminded me of the saying, you know, if you go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. And it's because what you are going to find is the assumption that you're building. What you will find is the lack that you just confirmed is there. And it's just fucking bizarre, but there's so much opportunity in that. And so it's like, yeah, that's a way for me to experience not seeking, is to remember what it was to seek, to know that option is always on the table. When I'm seeing somebody and they're in the midst of a very intense search, I'm like, oh man, that I don't even know if I'm doing that in another way, in another context. Like, so if I complain about somebody for doing something, I'm like, fuck, man, I don't even know if I'm doing that to someone else. I don't even know if someone else is complaining about me in the same way that I'm complaining about someone else. Like, all this shit that someone else does that bothers me are all things that I do, and judge. And that's why it's so easy to judge someone else. And so when you hear my criticism, what you're really hearing are my priorities.
It's like the tunnel vision. If we're focused on what someone else is doing to us, we're not looking at what we're doing in response. That, like, we're always doing stuff. And so even that tendency to focus, as opposed to there's a clip we threw up from episode with Alexandra, where I think someone said, like, you said something like, just pay attention. She asked, to what? It's like, oh, there is no what. But like, that focus is the tunnel vision, the focus on like getting what I want, getting where I want to, because of that sense of lack, the seeking for something is that focus, is that tunnel vision. And you're separate, you're divided, you're not relaxed, you're tense, you're confined. Like, you confine yourself by focusing on some assumption, some judgment, some, desire there, somewhere else is very specific. It's not like you're thinking of a bunch of different theirs. It's like one at a time, you'll think of different things, but it's that tunnel vision, that focus that you can do, getting somewhere in life, becoming more, can be that tunnel vision. And again, cuts you off. There's no sensitivity, or a lot less sensitivity in that focus, as opposed to, attention just being not specific, but at least here.
Attention to everything, and that includes both sides of the coin in terms of our experience, the physical side, quote unquote, and the subjective side, right? Like, and that's the point I was making earlier, is a lot of the times we look through the lens of trying to protect ourselves in the same way that we would protect ourselves in the wilderness, but often we're protecting ourselves from thoughts, from perceptions, from things that aren't actual dangers. but we don't recognize that. We don't see the difference. We actually think of them in the same way. Right? And it's to be aware. It's like, what am I feeling? Oh, that's not a danger. That's indicative of something. Like that feeling right there is indicative of something that I'm doing.
Yep.
Something I'm doing, not something that's being done to me. It's like, again, relationships are a big one. This is why Krishnamurti was saying, you say that you see your face without distortion in your relationships. If you're looking, but people are looking instead for the me I'm thinking about, instead of the me you are. And it's a very different experience. I want to say very quickly to everyone, first, thanks for joining us today. It's always nice to see so many people here on the live stream on a Sunday. After this, in an hour, we're going to be doing our Tier 2 Sunday Patreon call, and Tier 3 immediately after that.
Bang,
so
bang.
Sundays are always awesome. If you can join us for that, we would love to see you. It's been an interesting ride lately. It's been, just ups and downs and twists and turns, and there's a lot of exciting shit that is happening with Dualistic Unity. There's a lot coming in July. I wanted to mention very quickly that if you haven't already, do leave a review for us on your local podcast platform. It's always appreciated. Likewise, if you would like to, we have a newsletter. You can sign up for that at dualistiCunity.com. In the very near future, our newsletter is going to have some additions to it. Andrew has been hard at work creating some information to go out on a regular basis. Stuff that you're going to love, things, thoughts, stuff that we're doing. Just really interesting stuff. So sign up for that newsletter if you get a chance, especially if you're interested in the updates that are coming down the road. I want to talk a little bit also about the fact that we have talked to and confirmed all of our investors, and that as a business, Dualistic Unity is now officially moving forward in a different way. Lots of exciting news. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, to all the listeners and everybody else. It means a lot that you're here. It means a lot that you're doing all this. It means a lot that you continue to go through what it is you're going through. And again, I want to say, because we had somebody here in the comments, Brev, how's it going? Who was saying, I used to put you guys up on a pedestal. It was really hard dropping that, but I think it just comes with realization. That comment in itself is huge to me. Just the fact that you're willing to go, yeah, I did kind of look at you in a way, and to recognize, and I think it's really important to keep this in, that the brain's going to keep braining, right? So you're always going to have someone on a pedestal as long as your brain is functioning, because there's always going to be someone in a hole and someone on a pedestal to your brain, always, right? But it's keeping in mind that that's not the case. It's keeping in mind that, oh, right, that really depends on my idea of myself. And until that's in there, those things don't make sense. But your brain needs an idea of you in order to process concepts. It needs it. So it's impossible to remove the idea of you from the thinking equation, from the thinking process. You can't do it. That's the bitch, is that you can't remove the idea of you from the experience of you, right? Not as a human being, right? But you can recognize that the idea of you is not you. So that means it can do its thing, continue to change, inform you from infinite perspectives in your whole life, and never actually be you.
And again, as soon as we want to think about ourselves, there's going to be some sort of and want to know the how. If the how is there, then it's going to be relative. Again,
why is a favorite question too.
Yeah.
just,
that's a good point.
It's like how and why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like two favorite
how for
questions.
me, why for them, how for them.
Well, that's why when Celeste was really young, my daughter, for anybody who's a new listener, was very young, there were occasionally moments where the why train would have to stop with because.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
That's it.
And that's the most unsatisfying answer that we still have to take in, right? That we still just have to take in. It's like you can why yourself all day long and never come to a point where you stop.
Yeah.
It can become obsessive.
And you can almost take that to be like, anytime you ask someone else why, the response is always because. Like, they're going to say something, sure, but it can be for yourself too. But the importance is like your own why your own focus, because like why someone else does anything is kind of irrelevant.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was totally thinking.
Like it's kind of entirely irrelevant.
Oh, you don't even know why.
Yeah.
Neither do they.
I was gonna. Oh,
That's
yeah.
the point. So it is always because.
Exactly.
So we'll have this like layer on top, our assumption of why.
I
And
don't
not
even know
know
why.
it.
I don't know why I do the shit that I do. Oh my god! I remember the first time I had that realization. It was, it was just after it was just running it into wall after wall of assumptions, and then it was just like, I don't know why I keep running into this wall. I just don't. I don't know why I make these choices. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know what the fuck is the point. But I'm still here. No matter how many questions I ask, no matter how many answers I give myself, I still always end up in the place that I never leave, here. So thank you so much, everybody, for not running away to there, as tempting as there can and will always be.
And we do make it tempting because, again, we're not here to be liked. That's one of the things I love about our podcast is the fact that up until now, and not now specifically, but the very near future, we have no production value. Like I just love it. Like we don't use fancy mics. We don't have a producing team. We don't have there's no
Editors
mixer.
in the
There's no
background.
editors. There's none of that.
Sound.
We got
Sound
TikTok live
engineers.
sideways over
That's
here.
good.
We got a live stream where we're all in like different, like you're up close. I'm
in two
like,
videos.
Amanda's in
We're
between.
cloning me, apparently.
It's like we made it work.
Exactly.
We made it work because it's the important part isn't the production value. It's not the veil. It's not the surface level stuff. And that's reflective of,
The quality of our audience.
very
Yeah.
much.
Like straight up,
Very much
I will
so.
say that.
Yeah.
Like everybody who's listening to this, everyone in the live stream, everybody listening to this after the fact, even if this becomes a clip later on, hi.
Hey.
Like it's just, we don't go out of our way to make this easy to take. We don't go out of our way to make this easy to digest whatsoever. And the reason being is that it should be important to you. Like it shouldn't be important to me that you get this. It should be important to me that I get this. And that's it. And the rest of it is just us spending time having a conversation that you are welcome to jump into, that you are welcome to participate in. You're welcome to either do it on the screen in a Zoom or just have it in your own life with yourself.
Right.
But that's the point, is that you're doing it for you. And so because of that, you'll go through the semi high quality mic. You'll go through the background noise here and there. You'll go through all that in the same way that you would go through it with a group of friends at a coffee shop that was louder than you would have liked it to be, but the conversation was dope. Because that's the value, is that we're all in here together. We're not, I guess, polishing a turd to try and sell it to you as something valuable. We're straight up saying, like, this is a no turd zone. No polishing, no turds. We're just hanging out here. That's all this is. And so I appreciate the fact that there's so many listeners, and there's a lot of listeners, which is very cool. It's encouraging as shit. Like I look at my daughter now with an entirely different look on my face when I'm talking about the world that she's going to go out into, because it's changing. We are all changing. We are that world changing. It's inspiring. It really is. And all it requires is for you to just keep going and keep questioning that idea of yourself, that question that idea of where you think you're going. Because I think that's another big thing, is it helps to recognize that all you know is what's next. All you know is what's next. You don't know what's down the road. You really don't. Like, you could be sitting there thinking about how overwhelming your job is because you got to work it for the next 5 to 10 years and then get fired tomorrow. Right? You can stress out about, always doing the same thing forever. And then all of a sudden find somebody has offered you a position doing something else. But you don't think about that as you're going through it. Right. And so, I mean, that's very much the same case with here. People want to think about the podcast and go, eventually, I'm going to get to enlightenment. Eventually, I'm going to get there. But what if this is the whole point? What if this is it? That's it. What if this is it? There's nowhere to go but to actually just make the most of the moment that you're in. What if each episode is a complete work in itself? You know, and the only reason we number them is to make it a little bit more convenient to look them up, right? But people tend to look at it like it's a process of getting somewhere. Like, oh, I got to make it through seasons 1 and 2, and then I will have the recognition. It's like, what recognition? That life is an ongoing process of paying attention, moment to moment to moment. That is not a recognition. There are recognitions that help point that shit out, but aside from that, it's a practice.
Yeah. It's not this journey like the steps to getting there, but it is a process in the sense of being here, because it's not like, you know, the trajectory sort of thing. It's just like kind of I've said reverberation a number of times before. I don't know if that's the exact reason, but you probably contextually understand. Like the process is like coming back to here, or like being aware of here, and almost not like working through all the reasons that you're not here, but over time we build up a lot of tendencies to focus on certain things, to find comfort in certain things, to soothe certain fears. But like here, you're still afraid, and there's things that kind of like buffer you from here. And so it's like the process is like digging in to where you're at, like staying where you're at, remaining attentive, like being willing to remain uncertain, not jump to conclusions, not jump to assumptions to try to distract yourself from here. It's like, are you distracted or not? And that's if there's any sort of process, it's just the continuation of that. You know, are you here or not? Are you distracted or not? Are you focusing on assumptions or not? Are you tense or not? And being willing to be honest with yourself as to why, as opposed to looking to someone else. Because like if you're looking to anyone else about, you know, all those things, why you keep wanting to distract yourself from here, and being honest with that instead of blaming someone else for distracting you, or, you know, pushing this on you so that you have to respond in this way because you just don't want to take responsibility for yourself and your experience right now. Like if there's any process, it's just that digging in and being honest with yourself about the reasons that you distract yourself, and when you're just afraid, as opposed to sure of anything that you think you're afraid of.
Right, because we're all like you said, we're always, you know, you're either paying attention or you're distracted, but you're paying attention to the distraction. So you're always paying attention to something, and it almost feels like the feeling precedes the question. Because when I am when I'm feeling like I'm here and dialed in and paying attention, I don't think to check that I'm doing that. But when I'm distracted, I suddenly feel heavy, and in the distraction that doesn't work, I think, is this working?
Something's got to work.
You know what I mean? So it feels like the feeling precedes the question. And if I am feeling like asking what's happening, what's going on, that's indicative that I'm in the middle of a distraction, that I'm paying attention to a distraction. I'm paying attention to the there and not the here, because when I am here, I never think to question being the here. The being here is just being here. So we don't need to check, work. Like it just, I don't know if any of that makes sense. Like the feeling precedes the question. But I want to say it's the opposite, or my brain wants to say it's the opposite.
But it's the practice of doing that as a life, you know, and that's what it is. I was having a fantastic conversation with Daisy over at the Life Unpotted podcast the other day, and we were talking about, you know, the future, you know, walking into the future. And I was saying, like, it's very different because most of the time we create this assumption of our future, we bank on it, it gives us a sense of security, and then we operate under that security until everything goes amiss. Kind of like I was saying earlier, all of a sudden we feel like, oh my God, I'm panicked, I'm confused, I don't know what's happening. It's like, right, because you were investing in something that wasn't reality.
Yep.
Right?
It didn't work.
Exactly. And that's what your feelings are telling you, is that once again, you're in your head.
Yep.
Right?
You're there.
The alternative to that is to simply keep moving forward and allow your future to be the culmination of one door after another, because that's what you're doing. You know, it's like, well, I have this list of things I want to do in my future. Well, if that's the case, you'll do them. See, what's funny about it is like, well, I want to do these things, so I got to, you know, if I want them, that's the best thing for me. It's like, how about you just keep moving forward and see if that want sticks? You know, because if it does, a door is going to come along that's going to go, you can go this way, and it'll go towards what you want. And you will have the option then and there, if you really want it, to face your fears and go in that direction or don't. But that's the point, is that your life will unfold in that way, and you will have doors that lead you in different directions, and you will have opportunities to make choices that lead you closer to those things that you want. But I want it now, therefore it's the best thing for me. It's like, let's see if that want sticks, because you wanted a fucking bouncy castle at one point in your life. You know what I mean? Like, you wanted shit that if you got it now, you'd be like, well, I don't want this now.
They were pretty cool.
You know what I mean? They were pretty cool, but it's a little different now. You're much bigger.
For sure.
You want like something bigger than a bouncy castle. You know what I'm saying?
Go skydiving.
You see what I'm saying? Or a big fucking trampoline or something.
Indoor trampoline places.
But you wouldn't want the bouncy castle.
But
you wanted as a 6-year-old.
Transform.
Exactly.
The wand is just transform shape, just like we were chatting before about life and how people think that death is the opposite, but it's just life transforming into another shape.
Yeah.
In the same way that the want is just transforming into a different shape, but the wants rarely stick for very long.
Sort of feeling. Yeah, because I'll have days where like I'll have like set things that I want to do and be like, no, I gotta do these things and like want to do them. And then days where I'm like, we'll do some stuff and then kind of let things play out. And it's very, very much rooted in how afraid I am, like how tense I am, how focused on myself I am. Because then on those days that I'm like, no, I got to do these things. These are the steps that I'm going to take. Like there isn't even relaxation, like as I'm doing that stuff, because it's still under control. It's still like white knuckling through the experience. And that like that root, that fear and our response to that, like the distraction, the focus, like, no, these things are what's best for me. Based on what? Based on, previous stuff that got you to the point that you still feel like you need to be in control, that you're still afraid, that you're still responding to that fear. And so if you continue to use control or the desire to control yourself or your day as a response to fear, and you're still afraid, it's like you're dragging the fear along with you as you distract from it instead of looking at it and relaxing, instead of responding the entire time. That's just going to get you back to a spot where you're still afraid, still maintaining that sense of that sort of fear that's underlying the desire for control and focus on that.
Yeah, because it's just that, the assumption is that this is not enough. This moment is not enough. This day is not enough, but tomorrow, something else, some other expectation being met. And then we begrudgingly live the moments that we deem are not enough, not realizing that just confirmed or that just solidified the assumption. And now you're experiencing that, you're in the center of that. But it's even when things are not necessarily meeting our expectations, it's being able to see that, okay, my expectations are not being met, not bitching about it, and still making the most of that moment that you're in, because that whole fucking moment is your life. How the fuck is that not enough? Because it's not meeting your opinion, it's not meeting some expectation, but that moment that you don't like is still your life. And no matter how you feel about it, how is that not enough? And so that's been hitting me a lot more lately. It's just how much, like, it doesn't matter how I'm feeling about this. It doesn't matter what the assumption is. It doesn't matter if I feel scared. It doesn't matter what the how or the why is. What it is this moment is my life, and that is enough.
There really is that sense of like, holy fuck, this is my life. Like, how could you want to be anywhere else? Like, distracting yourself from your life is like, you're really gonna give that to someone, like pass that off to another situation, pass that off to another person, a focus, a tendency to try and have, control, to trade that desire to keep yourself under control, even, which isn't for you. It's a trade. It's for everyone else. Keep yourself under control for them, because that sense of like being under control, you feel like it keeps you safe, but it's like, that is your life. You're sacrificing. Like, the sacrifice is your own experience for something that's not even guaranteed, because you still don't, you're way less sensitive. So if you're trying to stay under control and not just, relaxing.
Layer on the numbing cream of assumption.
You're going to be way less aware of yourself too. Way less
I will never feel sad again. I'm realizing I won't feel
I'll
shit.
feel sad, just not too sad.
But that's how extreme we are. We're like, I don't want to feel sad, so it's okay that the exchange is to feel nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That is a reasonable exchange in our opinion. A lot of times, it's like in order for me to never feel sad again, I also will sacrifice feeling happy, enthusiastic, and to feel alive.
Yeah,
to feel alive,
that's
we
medication
sacrifice.
in a nutshell.
Yeah,
That's literally what our medication is doing. It's numbing everything, and they say, well, it's regulating. It's like, yeah, minimizing.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is minimizing. That's not regulation if we don't gain any strength from it. Like, it would be like, well, we get you to go into the gym, but to do just enough so your muscles don't atrophy.
Mm-hmm. Or just slow down the atrophying. It straight up is. It's like, let's keep you here, not assume that there's anything that someone could do. It's like also assuming there's no way to build muscle. Like no one could build muscle. It's like, so this is all
pain is bad.
Yeah, because that's the trade. It's like, it's such a basic thing, but building muscle, you go through resistance. Like,
oh my goodness.
It's a bodily response. And yet to think that we shouldn't experience that, or there's no way, like someone is victimized, is like set in this experience for the rest of their life. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to be medicated for this. Like I am giving up any potential that this could shift, that there is something that I'm doing in my response to reality that can't be handled by me. Like there's no possible way that there's something I could do for this to quote unquote end or feel differently, or just feel differently, even just a different feeling. Because again, it's the seek and you shall find, and you start getting diagnosed, getting medicated. It's like, that's a lot of seeking that you're absolutely just going to guarantee in your life.
Well, and I have a genetic predisposition, so on and so forth. It's like, right. That doesn't remove your ability to respond to things. But it's funny because you just literally voiced like a good deal of the angry comments that we get to our posts, which is that you have the capacity to learn from what you're experiencing and to influence your response to it. And a lot of the times the response that we get from people is, no, you guys are fucking bigots because I have a physiological reason that I cannot take accountability for how I respond to my environment and to my conscious environment. And it's interesting because the only response that we can give them is try. That's really it, because what they're saying is like, nope, it's not possible for me to influence my mentality. It's not possible for me to have an influence over my anxiety or my depression or any of those things. I am overwhelmed by all of these reasons.
Powerless to the external circumstances.
Which is the staring at.
But that's the mentality that we're like, well, maybe question that.
Right.
Just that. Just maybe question your wholehearted conviction that you're fucked.
Question your certainty. You're so certain. Question that, because how's that going for you? Being so certain that you know how fucked you are. How is that going? Because we're just saying, consider.
Maybe.
You might not be 100% fucked.
People get mad.
Maybe there's like a wiggle room.
It's amazing.
Maybe it's 90 and you can get to 80.
Oh, you guys are being irresponsible, spreading this around.
I'm a 90% fucked gene. I've got the 90% fucked gene. I am clearly 90%
Somebody
fucked
literally
forever.
said the other day, this could be damaging for somebody to tell them that they're not who they think they are.
Oh,
it's like, well, that's part of growing up, though. Like, but that's it. I don't want to do it. Therefore, it's bad for people.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't want to take responsibility, but like, you want a guarantee out there. Like, there are so many people who are willing to take advantage of your desire to know yourself, your desire to reinforce. Oh yeah, I'm, follow this religion, have all of this plethora of disorders. They were confirmed by these doctors who, again, are just trying to find their own value, which they think is labeling people in certain ways to give them a medication that they don't even realize takes away a lot of their ability to possibly shift, to possibly respond. And I get hesitant, talking about the, medication stuff, because I've posted some relatively, just looking back on some videos, sometimes like, yeah, pretty insensitive stuff from time to time that
Hey,
I
that's how you're
didn't
developing
fully
sensitivity.
that I didn't fully have context for necessarily.
I'll tell you right now, though,
But
as somebody
it's
who was
still-
heavily medicated and in the shit, a lot of the stuff that you said was exactly the shit I needed to say to myself.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, everybody who doesn't want to say that is going to think of you as an insensitive prick,
Mhm.
whereas everybody else who's ready to make the leap is going to go fucking thank you.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess it's just this common sort of mentality to like, those are off limits, talking about that stuff,
Yeah.
bringing up.
That's helped a lot.
Yeah, seriously. It's like anything that deeply questions someone's perspective of themselves so that we get responses like this is
Mhm.
harmful to tell someone that they're not what they think.
Oh,
Despite that being the prison that we create for ourselves. It's like, hey, you're in a prison right now. Your focus, you're trying to guarantee something. You're trying to find certainty. You're trying to be sure of yourself. You're trying to know yourself. That's entrapping you, making your reality feel very small, very divided, very disconnected. You're going to be very insensitive to things. Like there is a whole experience right now that has nothing to do with what you think you are.
Mhm.
It's irrelevant to what's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's like totally irrelevant to what's happening right now. It's like to avoid being here, you can think about what you are and focus on that. But if you're really just paying attention here, it's like you could tell yourself all different stories if you want to right now, but they're not going to guarantee anything.
But I don't like how I feel
And
here.
we do.
That's what it is. I don't like how I feel here. So I need to find some way to feel better. And so I go and I create a story for myself, not realizing that it's my urge to grab a story that's making this here now suck.
Mhm.
So we go and we actually double down on the same fucking mentality, not even realizing you're like, I feel a lack. There's something wrong with my life. I need to fix my life. It's like you just took another hit.
Yep.
Mhm.
You just confirmed the lack that you were questioning because you were caught up in the distraction that you were like, wait a second, I'm not feeling here. Let's do something. Let's get there. I know there will turn into here. It's like,
And here will be better there.
I don't know if I don't think we're listening to ourselves.
It's got a T.
I don't think we're listening to ourselves.
As soon as you want to fix something about yourself, as soon as you assume there's something to fix, it's like that necessitates there's something to be wrong.
Yeah.
And then you can just cycle through that and
Well,
just chipping away at all the things you're assuming again.
Right. And then sometimes it takes something really jarring to snap you out of that once you've developed enough calluses, right? And you're not feeling sensitive, you're not feeling here. It usually is something really jarring. But that's why it's so important for us to have these conversations regardless of people's age or demographic or gender. It's just because there's always the potential to be the space around your assumption and not to feel like your assumption is the only thing that exists. And we always have that opportunity, even when we feel like we don't. You had said earlier, like we give up that potential. And I don't think we give it up because it's always available, but we certainly push it away and then pretend that we can't reach out and grab it again.
Yeah. I remember at one point I had said, it's kind of funny and tragic because the only true sin, which is the missing of the point, is the sinner, is the idea that you can sin, that there is a you that is doing something right or wrong. And that in itself is really the missing of the point. To abandon the sinner, to let go of the sinner, to surrender to the fact that there is no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's feeling connected all the time. To let go of the idea that you can fuck up existence. Right? To let go of the idea that you as an idea are a thing that you must be in control of, to validate, to protect, to do all of this stuff, like just to let that go. Boom, there's reality.
Mm-hmm.
Here and now. But what's going to happen? Welcome back to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And there's a serious
You've reached your floor.
Welcome back. You weren't gone long, but oh my gosh, and there can be this because there's a lack of seriousness if you're not taking yourself as seriously. And then there are more options. I've dealt with sometimes a fear of not taking myself as seriously because I'm like, well, then there won't be as much control. But you stop taking yourself quite as seriously, and there's so many more options, directions to go. Like you see more options as opposed to trying to control things and trying to, you know, get somewhere or take yourself seriously, or just, you know, judge yourself positively, like positively judge that idea of yourself, just going from, you know, negatively to positively judging yourself, and still very much maintaining me. Like there's going to be some degree of seriousness there, you know, and some degree of judgment that you're continuing to perpetuate, even the desire to just live your life for you, in the sense of building yourself, like worshiping yourself, essentially, like you being the most important thing in your life and how you're doing. And the maintenance of that, even if you are judging yourself positively, the maintenance of that requires so much of a sense of control, because you got to avoid certain things to maintain that perspective. You've got to, you know, act in certain ways to maintain that perspective. And it just narrows, step by step, narrows your life, your experience so much more, instead of not needing to build that sense of yourself, not needing to judge yourself one way or the other, and just being willing to not prioritize that, like prioritize here over yourself, over how you're doing here. And there's more options. It feels like a leap of faith, but it's like responsive in itself, like it's fulfilling in itself, because that experience that you have right now, like relaxation, there's no trade to that. Like that's the entirety of your experience. Like how you're responding to reality right now is it. Like that's it. It's not outside of here. So how could something be more vital than your response to reality right now? That if you're focused on how you're doing, it's going to be, you know, it's going to feel like some degree of separation, I think, and at least make it tougher to settle into the experience that you're having and pay attention and relax. Stuff in the way.
Absolutely. We have a little over 10 minutes left. And so I just wanted to remind everybody, we're going to be on Patreon after the fact. I also wanted to talk very briefly about the fact that Port Alberni is going to be going public later on this afternoon.
That's right. Ayo.
So I'm pretty stoked about that. Everybody who's listening right now, if you're not on Patreon and you've been interested in coming to Port Alberni, definitely do consider jumping on there and getting your ticket. But do keep in mind that you save a good amount of money by being on Patreon. So there's some links on the ticket page itself that will help you save $350, $150, or $50 on your ticket. This event is the full fucking deal.
Yeah.
Plus some. We're going from Saturday, November 2nd, all the way through till November 10th. We have a chef that will be cooking for us breakfast and dinner, and we will have a lunch plate as well. There is live music. There is going to be yoga taught by our own Levi, which I'm very excited about. Likewise, we are going to be going for some walks in some nature parks. We're going to be chilling in the hot tub, possibly hanging out in the sauna. We're going to have a fireplace in the main room. We've got a wood stove in the fucking massive gazebo, which we love to hang out in. We are also going to be going whale watching this time around. That's a new part.
First time.
Yeah, we've never done this. We've chartered a boat for 3 hours. And so all of the guests are going to go on a fantastic trip through the inlet in Port Alberni out into the waters around Vancouver Island, where we will look for both orcas and humpback whales. So it's going to be just fucking magical. And if you haven't been to one of these retreats, you should know we also smoke a lot of weed.
Yes.
Indeed.
The return 2 years after the first one. Yeah, it's I mean, there's so many things going on in that one. Like that the whale watching. I've never seen, I don't know if I've ever seen a whale.
I don't think so. Not unless it was on National Geographic.
Being that big, that large, especially the orcas, I was blown away by how big they actually are. Like 30 feet almost, I think. But then a humpback, it's huge. That's even bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And like, oh man, still blows my mind how little we know about the ocean. But yeah, that place, that spot in Port Alberni, it's really like a heaven on earth type situation. Like nothing but the coolest stuff all around, nature, pool, karaoke all the time.
Fireplaces.
Yeah, it's like a cabin in the forest, like magical forest type thing. Yeah, I wasn't gonna say that. Two beautiful forests nearby, some ass park. It's incredible, magical. Sometimes you can even see you'll see a lot of wildlife down by the river. Walks along that river there. It's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful oasis in Port Alberni, and we are, excited to return and to share it with some returning Port Alberni attendees and some new members joining. And every retreat is different, but I'm excited to reintroduce myself and ourselves to this location and to this experience that we're going to be co-creating. And so I'm excited to see what colors we have on our palette and the image and the image that we paint throughout that experience.
Oh, and 2 years. It'll be 2 years since the first retreat, the very first Dualistic Unity retreat.
That's insane.
That's insane.
Oh,
It feels like so much longer. We've done so much more. And so, yeah, if you can make it out to this retreat, please do. It's going to be fantastic. And so far, we have some returning guests. We have one guest that was at the very first retreat who will be coming back all the way from Australia.
Woo-hoo!
So I can't believe that's happening. It's going to be a celebration in a number of ways, because we will be about a month beyond our 3-year anniversary for the podcast itself. I think we will likely be coming close to the end of season 7 at that point. We intend to record an episode at the retreat. As always, this is going to be a fucking awesome experience. But yeah, it's going to be one for the books. This is something that I'm looking at as the completion of a lot of different cycles, the beginning of a lot of other ones. The same thing happening with right now. That said, one more announcement, because I understand the Port Alberni thing. It's a big commitment. It's a lot of time, and it is happening in November. So perhaps you're busy. But if you're not, come to the retreat. If you are and you would like to come camping this summer, we're going camping. August 19th to 23rd. That's a Monday to a Friday, which means it's the middle of the week. And the reason we're doing that is so the campsite's not just fucking packed with people.
Right.
So if you would like to join us, the details are on Patreon and only on Patreon. So you will find what the name of the campsite is, the dates, of course, that we are going, and a way to tell us that you're coming, so we know that we can see you there. If you're wondering what the expense for this is, that's really up to you. This is not a Dualistic Unity organized event. This is honestly us going camping. And that's pretty much. So if you want to come camping, get your gear, arrange a site at this campsite. You reserve the site yourself. You're responsible for your own food, your own time, all that stuff. We are just going to be a neighboring campsite that you can hang out with and fucking roast marshmallows with and whatnot. So definitely the details are on Patreon. You will find that there. And if you can't find it, just let us know. We'll send you the link on Patreon. But yeah, camping. Possibly the cheapest Dualistic Unity event you're ever going to see, outside of... No, it's going to be the cheapest because we're not charging you anything. It's fucking free. All you have to do is arrange your own shit. So if you are wondering, like, oh, I don't know if I can get out there, like, how do I bring gear and whatnot? Let us know, because somebody who's coming may have some gear. Alternatively, you can order some gear and have it shipped to me, so that way it's there when you arrive. There's always a way, is what I'm saying. But if you'd like to camp on the Pacific Ocean in one of the most beautiful parts of Canada, we would love to have you join us.
Yeah.
Possibly one of the most beautiful parts of the world.
Yeah.
Tofino. It's in Tofino, right?
Tofino, BC.
And yeah, just to reiterate, like, it is a DU event, but it's not like it's very much going by yourself, and we're close by. But the camping, I'm very excited for more camping as well. Like getting some gear. We went to Living Forest Oceanside Campground. Yeah. I always had a tough time remembering that name, or I tell myself that. It was awesome, like really cool spot there, and just the experience of camping. Like, I had done very little in my life. Like, it really, really helps to ground you, settle you. If you're, going spinning through a lot of stuff, it's like, oh yeah, wondering, meaning of life, blah blah blah. It's like, oh yeah, do this and that. It kind of simplifies things. Like, you gotta eat, cook some food. You want to sleep? Sleep. You want to be warmer? Make a fire. You know, it's like very, very much immediacy of your experience as much as it was kind of glamping.
Watch some birds and shit.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. Hang out, cover your bases. Exactly. So,
play some frisbee.
Yeah.
Hang out, have fun. Very much so. Like, like that just that maintenance of that sort of balance of the childlike mentality. Like, we were watching Hook yesterday. And for anyone who hasn't seen Hook, I think it's 1991.
Yep.
Robin Williams, incredible, and Edward Norton.
No, Dustin Hoffman. Julia Roberts. It's a Steven Spielberg.
Well, we were just
film.
talking about Edward Norton in Fight Club, so I feel
Right.
like there was a reasonable overlap.
Yeah, no, I always
in our
think about.
conversation.
I always cross those two. over.
I would be willing to see Edward Norton in Hook, though. I mean, I think that would have been cool. He could have played
Right.
pretty much any fucking character,
For
I'm
sure.
sure well. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I was
absolutely.
thinking of Edward Norton or Dustin Hoffman as Edward Norton. I'm like, there's no way he did that. Is he that?
But I want to
old?
Is
see
he Red
Dustin
Dragon? Is
Hoffman
Dustin
in
Hoffman
Fight
Red
Club.
Dragon?
That would
Would
be
you like to see
that would be
Dustin
cool.
Hoffman in Fight Club? He's just got shredded
Oh,
abs.
yes.
Expand his experiences, like the duality
That's
from
right.
Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium to
Yeah.
Hook, and then he's got Rain Man and this like trifecta of just like totally different roles. But he played a great Hook in
Oh,
that film.
without
But
a doubt.
yeah, for anyone who's like getting very serious about their life, their experience, like that potential, that relaxation, it's like it's such a forgotten experience. That experience of being, a kid, being more relaxed, not taking reality quite so seriously or yourself quite so seriously. Like, it's really cool how well they portrayed that. And for a 1991 film, like the cinematography and everything was really, really impressive.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
amazing.
And really cool, like the Lost Boys treehouse, their living area. Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
That was
Definitely
sick.
an inspiration for whatever we're going to do in the eventual DU retreat center.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because we want to have a chunk of land where we have the retreat center, but then there's also like an adventure center in the
Like
forest.
an obstacle course in the trees.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some rope swings, some dope shit. It'll be fun because again, this is all about experience, existence, being here and actually just being here. Not being in your head about here, not banking on, some future or relationships or ideas about the future or any of that. Just letting that go so you can actually be here. And it's one of the things I like about Dualistic Unity is that it's a practice in that. It's a practice in that for everybody who's involved, and it's growing. It's growing to a point where there is no ceiling on what we can do, and we can keep doing this, which does lead me to our last announcement, which was earlier I was saying that round one of investing with Dualistic Unity is over. We have completed round one. We are no longer accepting investments for the Dualistic Unity podcast. At the moment, there may be another round in the near future. But that said, we do have other projects that are underway and might be coming to fruition in the very near future, including projects in real estate and cannabis. So if you are interested in investing in the podcast side, the cannabis side, the real estate side, or just knowing what the hell we're up to, definitely go to dualisticunity.com/invest. Just fill out your information. Let us know what it is you're interested in and who you are and why you're interested. And then when we get to a point where we're going to have those meetings and actually present that next idea or whatever project we do present next, we will let you know and invite you to that meeting. So that way you can find out and be involved upfront and early. So dualisticunity.com/invest. That said, we are coming to the last minute here. So I just wanted to say again, thank you, everyone, for being a part of whatever the hell this is. Thank you for being a part of this episode. We appreciate all your comments. We appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, and fucking making the ripples that you're making in your day, in your life right now, because you could be on the road, you could be taking a walk, you might be at work, you might be just sitting at home. But the fact is that every single moment of your life is the whole, and your attention on it makes a difference for all of us. And that's all you need to do. There's no pressure. Just continue on.
Amen. You want to change the world, change yourself, change your response to right now. You want the world to be a little bit of a less judgmental place, stop judging right now. You want it to be a little bit more relaxed, relax right now. Like that's the opportunity. That's where it's at right there. You're not separate from it. So it's like, it's tremendous, the opportunity that we have. So Yeah, it's appreciated. Anyone who's ever tuned in, appreciate everyone for being here. This was a fun chat, and yeah, had a number of you in the comments. I know a few of you will be on Patreon
Hell
in
yeah.
a sec. So yeah, we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's easier to not judge yourself when you can just not be so certain that it's worth judging. And on that note, have a wonderful Sunday, and we'll see you around.